What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we have a Wrath of the Lich King discipline guide for PvP for you guys. I'm super excited on this one because I'm going to be playing a lot of Disc Priest coming into Wrath, and I'm going to show you guys some talent builds. So basic rotation little things to do, healing, and then some tips as well. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to do like this type of content, like and subscribe to the video, and let's get going, baby. All right, so first off here, we're going to just go over the basic rotation that you're going to be using as a discipline priest. Okay, it's pretty simple. When it comes to just basic healing, you have 3 main abilities or 4 main abilities that you're going to be using. Power Word Shield, most important, prevent the damage so you don't have to heal the damage. These shields are a lot stronger than they are on retail. Well, Dragonflight, this should change, but as of right now, they're freaking strong. I have some yeah, they're strong. Okay, Palm, another instant cast ability. This does a lot of healing as well, and this also ping pongs off of your teammates if it's in an AoE situation. So if somebody's taking damage, they get hit once, pops to the next person, and back and forth. So that's just how the ability works, if you aren't clear about that. So if everyone's taking damage, it's awesome AoE heal. Renew is another instant cast heal that you're going to be using as well. And then after that, it's Penance, Penance and Flash Heal. So those are your main healing abilities you're going to use. Priority goes Power Word Shield. If you're still taking, I usually pre-shield and pre-palm. Both of those last 30 seconds. Please be mindful of that. You can pre-shield and pre-palm a lot of situations so that by the time you actually take the damage, you can use them again right away. Okay, so you have, yeah, like I said, shield, palm. If you still need to do more healing, renew, or penance. If you still need healing and you can't cast, renew. I don't really use renew too often, to be honest. And if all of those things are on cooldown, Flash Heal. That's about it for the healing rotation. And then you could also use Holy Nova as well if you need some emergency healing as well. So shield, if you're still taking damage, palm. If you're still taking damage, penance. If you're still taking damage, Flash Heal. That's about it. And you can throw in renew as well. But renew is kind of like more, kind of like, yeah, it's not that great unless you spec into it, like for holy and all that kind of stuff. Okay, all right, let's get into the builds. I'm not going to go super crazy into these. I just want to show you guys you know, the important talents and the ones that change. So we got 4 builds for you guys. We have the one that I'm gonna go over, the one I want to play most. Secondly, a standard build that, you know, I assume most Disc Priests will want to run, and then 2 for fun ones that have a shadow hybridness to them. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so the first one, this is the one that I am going to be running, and most of the time, unless things change. But so just things to point out, didn't go full into meditation to use these talents otherwise. I went for make sure I had 3 in absolution because purging is everything, man. Purging is so powerful in Wrath. Gotta have that ability. To not take reflective shield. You do lose a little bit of damage from this, and you guys know I'm a damage person, but it's okay. It's not that big of a damage, and I think the talents are going to be better used otherwise, just because your main source of damage you're going to be using mana for, so you want to make sure you have all the other talents in mana related abilities or talents, such as, you know, using meditation and like absolution. Okay, everything else pretty standard down here. Only time things change is Renewed Hope. So Renewed Hope is every time you shield, you have 50% chance to put a damage reduction on. Okay, whether you have 1 or 2 points, the damage reduction is still the same, so it doesn't really matter. And for a 1 minute duration, you really don't need 2 points into this, because odds are within a minute you're gonna get it up. She said. Sorry, that was so inappropriate. Okay, going on to the next one. Divine Aegis, only opting to go for 1 point in this as well, because the shield isn't that great, but it's purge protection. All of this stuff is purge protection. That's what we love about this, because it's super purge. It's protected of the purge as you're doing the purging. And purge is just such a phenomenal ability, and it's going to win games. I promise you that. Okay, everything else pretty standard. Borrowed Hope, Penance. Okay, this is where things change a little bit. We're going into the Holy Tree. We're going to go for Healing Focus. This is a mandatory talent as Disc, because if you're getting attacked and you don't have this and you cast Penance, odds are you're only going to get like 1 tick out of your Penance, because the pushback is going to push it all the way back, and your Penance is going to be useless and you're going to die. Okay, 3 points into Holy Specialization for some more crit chance. And then we opted to go for 5 points into the Divine Fury so that we can get our Searing Light, which is our ultimate goal here for this build. So shorter cast time on your Holy Fire. And also greater heal, so kind of if you ever use greater heal. And then we went for Desperate Prayer, Emergency Heal. We have Inspiration, which is more damage reduction. opted to just go 2 points into spell warding just to fill the gap. You could put those 2 points into here, or special, or you can actually don't even need to take this. You can go for that, but just opted for that. And then Searing Light, which is 10% damage on all of your penance, smite, holy fire, and holy nova abilities. So your majority of your damage is going to be coming from holy fire and then those smites, especially if you glyph into that smite, which is going to give you an extra 20% damage onto those smites as well. So it's going to scale pretty nicely, and it's pretty mana efficient. Okay, that is it for the basic damage build, whatever you want to call it, my build, the one I'm going to play. Okay, next we're going into the kind of standard discipline build. So this is like one that I think most people will probably opt to run. It's more of a safer pick. And if that's more your speed, this is the one for you. Okay, so we have all of these talents. We end up taking the full meditation here. We'll opt to take mana burn here as well, because this is, you can kind of play offensive without going too crazy for it, just getting mana burns off. Again, did not go for reflective shield. Don't think it's super worth it. It is great damage, but I think that there's a lot of better options. Same deal with Renewed Hope and Divine Aegis, only going to go 1 point into those. Okay, everything else is filled out. And make sure you guys can look back at these if you want to see what I took and everything like that. And then going into the Holy Tree, we did very similar, except we just opted to not go for either of these. So I opted to still go for the Holy Specialization. You can take these 3 points and go into Improve Renew. It might be a better option, honestly, but you do get the increased crit, which helps out with some of your other talents like Divine Aegis, and I think there's another one as well. Like Focus Will with increased crit. Yeah, so that's kind of up to you, whatever you want to go. You can put those 3 points wherever you want. All 5 into Spell Warding for the reduced spell damage, 10%. That's a lot. Desperate Prayer and Inspiration, kind of the same deal from this previous build. Okay, and then now we're getting into the fun specs here. Okay, so I got 2 fun specs that I'm going to be definitely trying out, so you guys stay tuned for that. But this is a Discipline Hybrid Shadow build. Okay, so this one I think actually has some potential. I don't think it's super troll because majority of the talents are the same. You just took those extra talents that you went to Searing Light and put them into Shadow instead. But I do think this does have potential in a even in an arena environment. But we'll do some more testing. So this side is exactly the same. I just don't have any points into meditation here, but everything else exactly the same. Finding similarities in this build. You need Healing Focus, like I said, for penance. And then into the Shadow build, we went 10% shadow damage overall, another 6% onto Esword Pain. You get increased crit hit and reduced mana cost. 2 points into Shadow Affinity, which if you do get dispelled on your dots, you get some mana back. Short cooldown Fear. Mind Flay. This is so cool to have Mind Flay as a healer. Being able to slow things if you're playing with a comp that people are constantly running, like you're playing Warlock, Disc Priest, people are constantly running away. If, like, you know, they're trying to do damage, you can actually Mind Sear them and then maybe help them get Chaos Bolts off or something like that, or get their dots off. And then the pinnacle here is the reduced cost of Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend is awesome. It is so strong in Wrath. If you let that same thing sit on somebody, it's going to take probably 40-50% of their health and give you 5% mana every time it hits. So super nice to have. It makes it from a 5-minute cooldown down to 3. It's also going to help with your mana regen a lot. If you're going to play this build, it's going to be a lot more mana intensive because the shadow spells just cost more mana, even just keeping up your dots. So you're going to have to make sure that you're ready for that. So you have a little bit of mana there. Okay, and then the last build, this one's a cool one. So if you got, this is probably one you probably haven't seen much of at all. And this is a kind of like a dueling spec, or like a 1v1 spec that this could be really cool to mess around with. I'm definitely going to try this out at some point. So this first half is essentially the same. The big things to take into mind here, we have Focus Will, which is a 12% damage reduction. Okay, 12% damage reduction, and you stack that with Shadow Form, which is another 15% damage reduction. So when you're getting trained, you passively have 27% damage reduction the entire time, which is awesome. It's super tanky to have. You still get PI, which is awesome because when you have Shadow Form, your DP and VT are affected by haste as well. You don't have VT in this build, but you do have DP, and you have improved Devouring Plague, which is even better. It's gonna make you can even just spam Devouring Plague on someone and probably kill them, honestly, with these dots and all this haste and everything like that. You have Silence as Shadow has. You have VE, so self-sustain heal. You're gonna have, this is gonna be one of the tankiest specs I've ever seen. Like you don't have PS, but like this is a ton of tankiness to have. Oh, also side note before I forget, on this previous build, you do have Borrowed Power, which does affect Mind Flay. You can get really fast Mind Flays off. So that's kind of another cool thing to have on that. But yeah, this build is just all around tankiness and just living. You still have these strong powered shields. Not going to be super mana efficient, but in like a 1v1 dueling scenario, this could be pretty solid. I'm really, really excited to try this one out as well. It's kind of like a hybrid build, true hybrid build, I gotta say. Okay, when it comes to glyphs, okay, so shadow glyph for discipline glyphs, these two are mandatory. Penance, reduce the cooldown. PS, be able to use PS during stuns, yeah. The third one is definitely flex depending on what you're playing. For like my first smite build, I'm opting to go with a smite, glyph of smite, 20% more damage. Another one that I've also been experimenting with that I might actually try as well is Holy Nova. So increase the damage and healing of Holy Nova. So I'm going to be using this while leveling, so I'll be able to get a little bit more feedback on that. But just because, like I said, Holy Nova is awesome to use as like an emergency heal and damage. That's instant. It's not as mana efficient, but 20% more damage and healing on that could save your butt sometimes. So that's another option you could take. You can go with Holy Fire, Inner Fire, which gives you 50% more armor from your Inner Fire. Roughly like I want to say like around 6% damage reduction increase when it comes to just flat physical damage. I think, or I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. It might not be that great. You can go for other healing ones, just Powered Shield. Powered Shield gives you a little bit more healing every time you shield. Glyph of Mind Flay, this could work for the Mind Flay build, like I was saying, if you're on either of these builds, if you want to experiment with that. Since you will have Mind Flay, you get 10% more damage if you have Shadow or Pain up, so definitely an option there. And any other options you can take? Oh, Scourge and Power Imprisonment. So if you're facing a lot of DKs, this could be a spec that you could have because you're going to be shackling a lot. Especially those gargoyles, but maybe not a lot, but like shackling gargoyle is super important. You can win, lose games because of that specifically. And then another option, if you're playing like a BG setting, maybe playing that hybrid shadow build, you can run Shadow or Pain. It gives you a little bit more mana every time you. This isn't worth it unless you're like making sure that, unless you're really sure that you're getting the full mana back. If you get a full Shadow or Pain tick duration, you actually get more mana back than you've spent in the first place. So kind of cool to see on that. Okay, I think that's about it on the glyphs that you could use. You could opt to maybe take for a reduced cooldown for Fade. This is more for Shadow. If you're playing like the Shadow build, because you improve Fade or whatever that. Actually, I don't even have that. I take that back. You can run Dispel Magic. Yeah, it doesn't seem that great. That's about it. Okay, so we got our builds, we got our glyphs, we got our abilities. Last but not least, actually we'll go macros next. So macros, I don't have any macros on here. This is actually. Wait, actually I have retail open, right? I have some of the macros on here. Okay, so macros for Shadow or Death. This is the kind of same one people use on retail. Is it will if you press this, like someone's casting a poly on you and you just really need to get this out. You can just pop this death and it'll death something. As long as it's in your range, so that you do make sure just make sure the rank is correct on your ability if you get the new rank or whatever like that. You can kind of copy this one here. We have a self penance macro because penance can be used offensively or defensively. I personally like to use a macro to making sure that I'm penancing the right target. So penancing myself versus penancing somebody else. So I just have it just slash cast at me and then cast penance. Same thing with Dispel because Purge and Dispel are the same exact ability, not like on retail. I opted to make a macro for just self-dispelling myself. So like if there's a DK training me and I want to dispel a Chains of Ice, I don't have to click on myself and then use it. It just kind of like gives myself a macro for it. And that's about it for glyphs for myself. I think I'm not a big macro person, or sorry, macros for myself. I'm not a big macro person. There probably are a ton of macros out there. If you do want more of a specific macro guy, you could definitely do some research on that, on like Warmane and Reddit and stuff like that. So let's finally go over just some tips and tricks for playing Discipline Priest, okay? So like we mentioned kind of going through all the abilities. The first thing I want to mention is Death Knights, okay? Death Knights are super important, are going to be super popular, and it's important to know how to play against them. Okay, abolish disease. Keep this bitch up when you're getting trained or your partner's getting trained. Getting rid of their diseases is super nice to have. It's a lot of damage from them, and it's going to help out a ton. Another note on abolish disease, it's purge protection. Okay, if you're in a situation where you're going to pop a big ability that's purgeable, or you need to make sure shields don't get purged, or like your partner's a ret and he has wings and you need to protect that, you can use abolish disease as purge protection to make sure that somebody doesn't get purged. Okay, going on to Divine Hymn and Hymn of Hope. These do go through LOS and I think, yeah, they go through everything as long as they're in range, in 40 out range, so you can get these heals off. So make sure when you are using these, they're huge cooldowns, so please do not get caught and get kicked on these. So casting these out of range or out of range behind a pillar, or in range but behind a pillar. Divine Hymn also really good to pair Inner Focus with. Okay, Inner Focus with this will make it no mana cost and increase the crit chance on it. This is a fat mana intensive ability, so you want to make sure that you are using that with it. The other option for Inner Focus is probably Desperate Prayer. You could I believe you can crit off that. Please don't quote me on that. I believe you can crit off of this. I don't know, because I increased the crit chance by 25%, and it reduced the mana cost if you're like or something like that. It's a big emergency heal. You could also opt to use it for like penance or something like that. But Divine Hymn is your best thing to use it for, because that's such a fat heal for the mana cost, and you get the free mana cost, like I said. Okay, Holy Nova. Holy Nova, like I was mentioning, is a great emergency heal. This is something I learned a lot in the pre-patch. When you're getting trained, let's say you already shielded, you already penanced, you're already palmed, you have nothing else up, you already renewed, you have this little bit of a window, 5 seconds, where you have to cast something, and you're just getting trained. You're like, oh, what do I do? Holy Nova, man. Holy Nova can do some solid healing. It costs the same mana as Flash Shield, and Flash Shield does baseline 3,400. Holy Nova does 1,300. So 2 of those, you basically get a flash heal. With spell haste being so high and everything like that, you probably can get these off pretty quickly as well. So it's a great emergency heal to be using when you're getting trained. Definitely don't forget you have that when you don't have any of those other abilities available. Okay. Speaking of purge, man, get that purge in. Purge everything, pre-purge things. Anything that, there's so much stuff that's purgeable in this game, especially in Wrath, that you really need to be staying on top of it. So like mages, doesn't matter what game it is, pre-purge all of the buffs, man. 90% of people will forget to rebuff, okay? So if you can clean them up, purge them off, so that when he does use something that's important to purge, like an Icy Veins or a Wings or something like that, or even mages, if you're pre-purging them and then they get Ice Block, it's more likely that your MD will get it on the first try. Just being ready. Sacred Shield, purge the crap out of Sacred Shield for Holy Paladins. It's like their best ability ever. So making sure you're staying on top of purges with that is, sometimes playing offensive isn't doing damage, it's purging. And it's super strong. I can't stress that enough. Okay. Any other tips, quick tips on this stuff? Shadow Fiend. Okay, Shadow Fiend, make sure you're getting full benefit out of this. Don't use Shadow Fiend if you think you're gonna not get full uptime. It is so much mana, it's so much damage, such a long cooldown for a discipline. Especially if you're not playing those the reduction talents on the shadow side. So make sure that if you do use Shadow Fiend, you're getting good use out of it. Use it early, in case the game does go 5 minutes, you can get a second one off. So and just make sure, make sure you're getting full uptime mana, and don't waste your mana. Like if you're at 90% mana and you pop this, it's fine. Just make sure spend that mana, purge or something. Make sure that you do get the full use out of that. Okay. I think, another quick tip, Inner Fire. Make sure you keep this up. I have a weak aura on here, and I think I get that to you guys. If you guys do want this, just let me know in the comments. But it's just a weak aura that when it's off, because when you're getting trained, this will fall off and you might forget, and that's a lot of damage reduction that you're going to be missing out on. It's like for example, at level 70 here, you go from 32 damage production. 21, so you lose about 10%. It's increased 10% more damage you're going to take from physical abilities if you don't have this on. Just make sure you're making sure that you're staying on top of that if that falls off for you. Okay, that's about it. I know it's a long video. If you guys stayed to the end, I appreciate you guys. This is going to be my display. I'm going to keep this updated. Make sure you guys check out the stream if you guys do want to see some Discipline Priest content, because we're going to be cranking it out in Wrath. So thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.